Hi there, Terry back again. Hope I find you all well and hope you've been enjoying my videos for the last few months. If you'd like to let me know in the comments the answer to that question. And while you're there, if you could like and subscribe, that'd be brilliant. I'm nearly at 100, so that's not too bad. I haven't done a Superman video for a while, so I thought let's get 1962 sorted. So we have part 1 of 1962. Starting off with the first Superman 12-cent issue, and that was number 150, January cover date, art by Curt Swan and George Klein. The first story is called The 1 Minute of Doom, and it included the first appearance of the Doghouse of Solitude. I wonder who stayed in that. It was written by Jerry Siegel and art was by Al Plastino. The second story was called The Duel Over Superman, and that was written by Robert Bernstein and the art was by Kurt Schaffenberger. And the cover story, When the World Forgot Superman, that was written by Jerry Siegel and the art was by Curt Swan. But great cover. Then we have one of those desk smashing covers, Action Comics 284, another January cover date, and had the first appearance of a Professor Vaycox, another Phantom Zone escapee, but he does appear every now and then up until 1986. The Supergirl story was The Strange Bodies of Supergirl, written by Jerry Siegel and art by Jim Mooney, and this was the 6th of the 8th stories of the Unknown Supergirl story arc. And the trivia of this one, in the letters pages, there was a letter by E. Nelson Bridwell, obviously a future Superman writer. We then have February cover date, Superman 151, and the cover there, Super Creature from Krypton. The first story in it was called The 3 Tough Teenagers, written by Jerry Siegel and art by Al Plastino. And then we had The Man Who Trained Supermen, and that was written by Robert Bernstein and the art was by Curt Swan and George Klein. And then, just for a change, they didn't use that title that's on the cover. They called it Superman's Greatest Secret, and that was written by Jerry Siegel and the art was by Curt Swan and George Klein. And then we have the February issue of Action 285, art by Curt Swan and George Klein. Seems to have forgotten Supergirl's cape, or the majority of it, but this is the issue where she is first shown to the public. The stories in there were called The World's Greatest Heroine and The Infinite Monster. The Infinite Monster story was the finishing of the Unknown Supergirl story arc, which started in 278. All of it was written by Jerry Siegel and the art was by Jim Mooney. We then have the March issue of Action, number 286, and this was called, as you can see, The Jury of Super Enemies, and it was written by Robert Bernstein, art by Curt Swan and George Klein, and it features the Superman Revenge Squad, but it wasn't their first appearance. That happened back in January 1962. It's only 2 months before this issue. That was in Superboy number 94. And then we had a story called The Death of Luthor, and that was written by Jerry Siegel and Jim Mooney. Next we have the April issue of Superman, issue 152, art by Curt Swan, George Klein and Ira Schnapp. And we have the Robot Master, written by Jerry Siegel, art by Curt Swan and George Klein, and this story featured some of the Legion of Superheroes. And then we have a Super Baby story, Super Baby Captures the Pumpkin Gang, and that was written by Leo Dorfman, and the art was by George Papp. And then we have the last story, The TV Trap for Superman, and that was written by Bill Finger, and the art was by Al Plastino. Then we have Action 287, the April issue, cover by Curt Swan and Sheldon Moldoff. And this was called Perry White's Manhunt for Superman, which I think that's what it says on the cover. And then we have, that was written by Robert Bernstein, and the art was by Curt Swan and George Klein. And the Supergirl story was Supergirl's Greatest Challenge, written by Jerry Siegel, art by Jim Mooney, and that also featured the Legion of Superheroes. Then we have one of my muckiest looking Superman covers as far as dirty and price stamps all over it are concerned, but it's the best issue I could find at the time. I will one day get a better copy, hopefully. But it's a Superman 153, May cover date, and the art by Curt Swan. And the stories in here were The Day Superman Broke the Law, written by Bill Finger and art by Al Plastino. The Secret of the Superman Stamp, and I wasn't being funny earlier. It was written by Edmund Hamilton, and art was by Curt Swan and George Klein. And then we had The Town of Superman, and that was written by Jerry Siegel, and the art was by John Forte. We then have Action Comics 288, May cover date. I don't think you could get away with that title nowadays. The Man Who Exposed Superman. The writer's unknown. Surprise, surprise. And the art's by Curt Swan and George Klein. And then the Supergirl story was The Man Who Made Supergirl Cry. And that was written by Leo Dorfman, and the art was by Jim Mooney. And then we have, last but not least, Action Comics number 289, June cover date, and that's art by Curt Swan, George Klein and Irish Snap. It was called The Super Practical Joker, and again, unknown writer, and the art was by Al Plastino. And the Supergirl story was Superman's Super Courtship, and it featured the adult Legion. It was written by Jerry Siegel, and the art was by Jim Mooney, and the lettering was by Milt Snapin. That's the first time the letterer has been listed. This story has the first indication of the relationship between Garth Rands and Irma Ardeen, who was Lightning Man and Saturn Woman. And that is it for part 1. If you would like to like and subscribe, please make a comment, say what you did, what you didn't like, and I will see you in part 2. Thank you very much. Bye bye.